Saidel. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you.
Welcome to Saidel's Bakery.
Thank
This is
you.
the whole bakery is what you
I
see in
love
front
it.
of
It
you.
smells
Wow.
delicious.
It's a very small little bakery. It's the back of our house. We converted the back of our home into the bakery. And there's just two bakers. My wife somewhere up there. She'll probably come down in a second, and myself. My wife does all the pastries. She does the apple pies, the cookies, the yeast cakes, and all the sweet stuff. I'm the bread guy. I'm in charge of all the breads and the challahs and the bagels and the bialis. We started our bakery in 2008. Until then, I was a computer programmer by profession for 25
Really?
years.
Oh, I love it.
I had a midlife crisis, and suddenly in the middle of my career, I changed direction completely and became a baker. And we started this bakery as a different kind of bakery, not your run-of-the-mill standard bread bakery. This bakery is a healthy bakery. We use mostly organic ingredients. Whole grain flour is the one that I'm actually doing now. Is not a whole grain. This one is a whole grain over here, the whole grain challah. We have to cater to everyone's needs, so we make white and whole grain. The breads that we make are mostly authentic Jewish breads. That's another thing that is unique about our bakery. We concentrate mostly on authentic Jewish breads like challah, bagel, Jewish rye bread, bialis, all the different breads that have a Jewish tradition to them. In addition, we make a whole range of breads which are healthy breads, organic breads. We invented our own bread, a health bread called Rambam bread. Rambam is
Excellent. It's excellent.
Oh, really?
Maimonides, the famous philosopher and physician from the 12th or 13th century, I think. He was a very famous physician, and he wrote a lot of works about medical books, in addition to his many scholarly works.
Maimonides.
Maimonides, yeah, Rambam. And we based this bread on his writings. He was actually the court physician for Saladin in Egypt, and he wrote many different booklets for the different family members of the king, teaching people how to cook the right way, bake the right way. And we found in the Israel library a manuscript from one of his writings which described how to bake bread the right way, and we tried to copy the method that he described in this book, in this pamphlet, and we duplicated that. We called it Rambam bread. It's a very healthy bread, has medicinal herbs in it. It's very healthy bread. So that's what we basically do. Our bakery, it's a very small bakery, but it's actually quite deceiving because it's a very...
What are the herbs that are in the bread?
There's a whole range, about 15, 20. There's turmeric, garlic, sesame, sage.
All the good stuff.
All the good stuff, all the stuff.
Very
The Rambam actually wrote a book about medicinal herbs, and he lists about 300 different herbs, but they for specific ailments, to cure specific ailments, but there's certain herbs which are generally good for your health. So we try to take the ones that were generally good and not specific to a specific illness and combine them and get something that tasted good at the same time. It took a lot of experimentation. Eventually we got it right. So our bakery is basically a Friday business. We only sell our baked goods on Friday. We spend the whole week preparing for the Friday sale. My wife and I start Sunday morning. We have a special process called partial baking. We bake our breads in the oven, but we only bake them 80% of the bake. We don't fully bake them. And then we freeze them in a special freezer, which is just around this big metal box over here around the corner. It's called a shock freezer. We freeze the breads and we store them as frozen doughs in our regular storage freezers, which we have around back. And we build up a stock of baked frozen doughs, of frozen baked goods. And then we start taking orders on Wednesdays, Thursdays. People order from our internet site, they phone in their orders. And then we take out what people order from the freezer, we defrost it, and we put it back into the oven to complete the final 20% of the bake, and it comes out tasting and looking as if it had been baked from scratch that day. It's a very well-known international process. We didn't invent it. It's called par baking or partial baking. So that's the way, with just two people in the bakery, we managed to bake about 2,000 baked items per week. Breads,
It's a lot of production.
challahs, pies, cookies, etc., etc. So our whole process begins over here with this little grain mill over here. This is where we grind our own grains. We grind our own whole grains in that mill. We don't grind the white flour ourselves. White flour we get in a sack like this of 30 kilograms, which has to be sifted. This is our sifter over here. pour the flour into the upper box over there, and you turn it on. And it all falls into this little basin underneath, and it's nice and clean and sifted. This is necessary for kashrut reasons. For being a kosher bakery, you have to sift the flour before use, because you're not allowed to have any bugs in your flour. So this sifts out any impurities and any bugs from the flour before it's used. The flour that we grind does not need to be sifted, because the supervisor, the mashgiach, comes and checks it when it's in the sack with the grains, that there's no bugs in the grains. So we just grind it and we add it straight to the dough. We don't have to sift it first. All the ingredients are measured. You can see our bakery is very low tech. We have all these old-fashioned scales, nothing digital or anything. We have only 3 machineries in the bakery: the slicer, the mixer, and the sifter. Everything else is done by hand. That is why it's called an artisan bakery, because it's the old-fashioned way of baking everything by hand. Everything is weighed on these scales, all the ingredients, then it's put into this mixer where it's all mixed up. It's a very powerful mixer, but it's a very slow mixer. It's not good for whipping cream or whipping eggs, but it's a very powerful mixer. You can put up to 90 kilos of dough at one time. About 100 loaves of bread in this mixer.
Will this go in there? This right here?
That and that together.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
And more.
Wow.
That's about
Wow.
half the capacity.
That's a lot of wow.
I just ordered delicious breads. I had no idea what was going on behind it.
He gets up Sunday morning and works all week.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we mix the dough in the mixer, rises in the mixer for the first rise, then we take it out in pieces, or we put it in basins and we portion it out. Every piece of dough has to be weighed like a challah has a specific weight. You have to weigh each piece of dough before you shape it. Then we shape it into different shapes, like braiding challah, for example. We have pans to put bread loaves in like these.
Yeah.
We have even baskets which we put the dough in to rise. They're like bread pans, except it's a basket. We dust the circumference of the basket with some flour. You put the dough in and it rises in the basket, and it comes out the same shape. We have oval shapes, round shapes, rectangular shapes, and the crust gets the imprint of the basket weave on the crust. It looks very attractive, especially for artisan style loaves. The bread rises on all these shelves up here. You can see we already started putting some trays of challahs up there to rise. It's a very nice warm part of the room up in the top of the room. So it rises very nicely over there. We monitor the environment of the bakery with these humidity and temperature meters in all the corners to determine what kind of weather we have. It's whether it's too cold, too warm. You have to make all adjustments for the different types of weather, because if it's too cold, the bread doesn't rise quick enough. If it's too hot, it rises too quickly. So you want to keep a consistent baking schedule, you have to adjust all these factors when you're baking. So the bread rises, and once it's risen, then we put it into our oven, which is behind me over here. This is our brick oven.
Wow. It's pretty amazing.
And the way we heat this oven is with a gas burner. This is our gas burner over here. And we just put it in there, you'll be able to see. You can see this room, even though it's a small room, every millimeter is used for something. It's like the cockpit of an aeroplane. Everything is within hand's reach. Very efficient workspace. And that heats up the oven. You could alternatively put in a bunch of logs and make a wood fire in the oven. It's designed for either. The only problem with wood burning fires in the middle of a residential neighborhood is it's not neighbor friendly. So we like to keep a good relationship with our neighbors, so we opted rather for gas rather than for wood fire. So we heat the oven. You can see it's currently now 150 degrees Celsius, 53 degrees Celsius. We heat it up to the baking temperature that you require, 180. You guys work in Fahrenheit, yes. Right? 350 Fahrenheit or whatever you're baking at. And once the oven is heated, you take the fire out of the oven, and the brick absorbs the heat from the flame, and it radiates it back onto the bread. So the bread is actually baking from the heat of the bricks, and not from the actual fire in the oven.
For how long it keeps this?
So the oven is designed with a special kind of brick. It's called a fire brick. It's made with a substance called silica, which absorbs the heat and it retains the heat for a very long time. So if you're not baking and you just leave the oven on its own per day, it would lose about 20 to 30 degrees in one day. You just have to replace the heat that is lost. Obviously, if you're baking bread inside, it also loses extra heat towards the bread that is being baked. You have to top it up. But it's not like your oven in your kitchen where you have to heat it from scratch every time you want to bake. This you just have to keep topping up around 200 degrees Celsius, 380 degrees Fahrenheit. You keep it at that level every day, more or less. So it's very energy efficient. You're using just little energy to get back to where you need to be instead of starting all the oven from scratch every day. So the breads are baked in here, 80% of the bake. They're then taken out and cooled on these wire racks over there and over there. Then we put them into this shock freezer to freeze them. We bag them in plastic and we store them in the freezers around back. And that's where our bakery works on. During the week, our baking week is very normal. It's not like a normal baker where the baker gets up every morning at 3 o'clock in the morning, so he has fresh bread every day by 8 o'clock in the morning. Because we only sell it on Friday, so our Sunday to Wednesday schedule is pretty normal. We start at 8 in the morning and we finish at about 6 in the evening. It's a little bit longer than a normal 9 to 5 job. But on Thursdays, it's a crazy day. We get up at 8 o'clock, we start making challahs, and all the breads that are in the freezer have to be taken out and defrosted. Completing the bake, they have to be bagged, organized according to people's orders. So on Thursday, we work a 36-hour shift straight from Thursday morning all the way till Friday evening when Shabbat comes in. So that is a bit of a crazy day, and on Saturday, obviously, we have a great rest. Really appreciate Shabbat in this bakery. And we have on Friday morning drivers coming from different parts of the country. We sell our breads locally. You can see we have a little store over here where we sell it to the local residents here in Carnation One. But most of our sales are out of the Yeshua. We sell to Jerusalem, Modi'in, Beit Shemesh, Ra'anana, Givat Ze'ev, all around the center of the country. We have drivers coming over here to collect the orders, and then they return to each city and they distribute it directly to people's homes. And that's the way our business works. Now, in addition to our bakery, we also have an Artisan Baking Institute where we give all different courses, baking classes and baking courses, 15 different topics from challah baking to healthy baking to pastry baking. We just started last summer, we started a special baking workshop for the breads of the Beit HaMikdash, of the temple, which is a very interesting workshop. It's become very popular, one of our most popular workshops. We travel all over the country. We have portable equipment. We can go to any, actually somebody, it was quite interesting a few years ago, they brought the whole family over from the States. The son was having a bar mitzvah, so we did a workshop for them on the deck of the boat in the middle of the Kinneret, in the Lake Kinneret. We took all our portable equipment and did it on the upper deck of the boat. We made croissants and borekas. So it was a very interesting experience. So we can get anywhere. We go from north to south. We tour around schools, old age pensioner groups, work groups from employee outings and all this kind of thing. We do birthday parties, bar mitzvahs, weddings, whatever. We get around.
Wow. Who's doing the bakery when you're doing that?
So we mix and match. We're actually transferring the focus of the business more to the workshops and less to the baking. Because I'm not as young as I used to be. I'm already 54 years old, and it's very labor intensive. The baking is very labor intensive, and I have to plan a little bit ahead. I don't think I'm going to be able to manage it for the next 15 years to continue at this pace for the physical work. So we're moving the focus of the business over to the workshops, which is less labor intensive and more profitable as well, because the workshop you can charge a lot more than you can charge for a bread.
Yeah.
So that's our story.
Smart.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing.
Awesome.
It's a pleasure.